Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome into 5 on the Floor Live. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. Got Brady Hawk. You can follow Brady Hawk 305. Greg Sylvander. You can follow Greg Sylvander. Tried to give Alex the night off tonight, although we appreciate he jumped in on playback. The Miami Heat win 96-94 in Charlotte. If I don't sound that enthused, it's because I don't think there's that much to get enthused about. But the Heat go to 8-8 on the season now. They beat a team in Charlotte that basically had 2 NBA rotation players. Their starting backcourt, their 2 top picks, LaMelo Ball and one of the Martins, Cody Martin, who, by the way, they were running plays for at the end of this game. LaMelo finishes 11 of 35. He still has never shot higher than 37% in a game against the Heat. And yet somehow he still blew up my prize pick because he shot 35 times and he scored 32 points in the game. Got it going a little bit late. LaMelo Ball, by the way, 3 of 15 from 2 tonight. 3 of 15 from 2. But the Heat win, but there are other storylines that I think are more important tonight. But let's start with the player of the game, Greg, because someone saved it for them, or else this would have been one of the most depressing post-game shows we've had in a while, and we've had some depressing ones. Player of the game.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
All right, so on a night that Jimmy Butler took 2 shots in 25 minutes before his night was done, and we're still trying to get details on that as we speak. There was a report of a back injury, I guess, but I don't know. It seemed to me like Jimmy really didn't want to play in this game. Second night of a back-to-back. Just was no impact whatsoever. He was doing cardio for the most part. He went 11 minutes of this game without taking a shot, and then he took a 3. And on a night that Bam Adebayo did have 10 rebounds and 10 assists, but took only 8 shots himself and finished with 8 points. They needed everything that Tyler Herro gave them at the end of this. And I want to go to you on this, Brady, because there is this trend that seems to be developing. And I know we've talked about Jimmy and Tyler playing well off of each other, but it does seem still like it's one or the other. And tonight, and we'll get to the play of the game because Tyler featured in that, and defending the house, he featured in that as well. Tyler ends up 11 of 22, 4 of 12 from 3. He's been a little off from 3 of late. He shot 7 of 10 from 2. He ended up with 27 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. He closed the game. That's why he's the player of the game. But why is it that we're seeing this where it's Tyler or Jimmy? Like he played as free and loose as he has since before Jimmy came back.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. I mean, when he's going to kind of take a night off, even when he's playing, Tyler's put in a position where he's forced to create more. I mean, it is what it is. I kind of felt like this was expected from Jimmy. Like it was like when he has that many good games in a row and you're talking about a quick turnaround on a back-to-back and he's suiting up, it was like, okay, I kind of expect him to be a whole lot off ball and just not as involved offensively as he was in these last few games. And that was the case. And look, for a good portion of the game, it didn't really matter. I mean, I didn't expect us to be having a player of the game that wasn't named Duncan Robinson for a good portion of this game. Like he was the only reason that this broke away. And then you just see a total collapse of. I hate that Jimmy gets this thing where he doesn't seem engaged, because if we want to go player by player, there's a whole lot of players we could call out and say don't seem engaged on a game against Charlotte. It just jumps out because Jimmy took 2 shots. So when you're up 20 and you see things begin to fall apart, it just looks like they took their foot off the gas. Against this team, they should have been able to put up more points because there's so many advantages to attack. And a lot of that starts with Jimmy a lot of nights. Like Jimmy usually kills Charlotte. It's just one of his better matchups. I mean, Bam had Taj Gibson on him for a good portion of this game. Like there was matchups to attack here. But they just had a total collapse in that fourth quarter where it didn't feel like Charlotte was going to miss. And what a shot by Tyler Herro. I mean, I don't know how it gets better than that. Like when you talked about us talking about this game and how it would have been for the post game, that might have like tore up the team. And I maybe some fans would probably maybe wanted Tyler to miss that to see what direction this would have went. But like I mean that like if they sold this game with the way that they were up and the way that this last game ended, like that would have tore up the locker room. It feels like in a lot of ways of the season. So Tyler's shot felt like it saved a lot of people, and credit to him. And not just, I know we're going to get to the play specifically a little bit later, but I mean, the defensive stuff, like all that stuff. If you want to talk about somebody that's engaged, Tyler looks engaged. Tyler looks like he wants these games. Tyler wants to win them. So credit to him. He saved a lot of people tonight.
Brady, I'm glad you mentioned that. Greg, I feel like this season means more to one person on this team than everybody else. Am I crazy to say that? Like I have not had to question Tyler's effort one time this year. His willingness to adjust for the team, you haven't had to question that one time. And it's funny to me because I got accused for a while of being the Tyler Herro hater and all that stuff. Now people are saying I'm caping for Tyler. I'm just reporting what I'm seeing. Like it feels like this season means something to him. His reputation means something to him. And I'm going to pivot here to Bam, okay? Because the Jimmy thing, we'll sort it out, right? The back, I don't know what happened tonight, why he was so disengaged. I don't know, okay? But, like, again, like, okay, Bam had 10 rebounds, 10 assists. He filled out the rest of the stat line. But Taj Gibson's 39 years old, Greg. He's 39 years old. What are we doing here? Bam has 8 shots.
There's a part of that you have to look to the offense, and then there's a part of it where he individually needs to probably take it upon himself to get up a few more looks. It's kind of difficult because early in the game he was finding Duncan, and Duncan was hot. So to go away from that is counterintuitive to what was happening within the flow of the game. So I think we can't overreact, but to your point, there were a lot of moments where he had mismatches that he didn't take advantage of. Obviously, the other things that he did in the stat line helped. They got a victory overall, but they were up 20, and then this turned into a clutch game all of a sudden. So, there was definitely some things that have gone wrong. It just feels like over and over we get back to this same thing. They can't get Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler on the court playing at their best at the same time in almost any game. I mean, can we think of a game where those 3 guys were absolutely dynamite, start to finish? It's hard to recollect one. And that's the overarching issue that this team has. And it's just good to get out with a victory because, to Brady's point, they lost a close one against Milwaukee that you really needed to get because that's a team close in the standings in the East. And now, had they dropped tonight against a subpar Charlotte team, you head into, the game on Friday and you're reeling. So it's good that they got the victory, but it is not, I think, the fashion that we would hope for when it's a Charlotte team that you can score on at will, basically.
What you said is it. What I think this front office has wanted to see from the 3 of them is never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. Like you said, there just are not games where the 3 of them all look good at the same time. And that is fundamentally flawed in terms of the build. And I know that I've been one of those that's hung on to this thing longer than others, but I'm there at this stage. Like I don't see a path. I don't see the two players that they could ever put on the floor that are going to make the three of them symbiotic. I don't. Okay. Where they're raising, it is not a 1 + 1 + 1 = 5 situation for them. It's a 1 + 1 + 1 = 2 or 2.5. They don't make each other better consistently. And that's just, I don't know what else they need to see to know that. I'm not saying you make a rash move here. That's not what I'm suggesting, but they have to be digging for anything, I think, in terms of a different kind of path forward. Because I just don't see it. Like, and you just see it's like Tyler wants it this year. Jimmy wants it on occasion. I don't know where Bam's at. I don't know what to expect, except it's not going to be what we expected coming into the season.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's been in his head.
He's in his head, and I don't look. There are other guys we're going to talk about here because it's not just him. I mean, we got the Jaquez issue. You got Jovic out of the rotation right now, but you should not be in a dogfight with that team. You just should not. There's no excuse for it.
To be fair, they weren't. They weren't for
but then they are. Then they are, Brady. Then you know they're going to be at some point, right? Like they're going to start
that's the
doing
real
stupid,
trend here.
disconnected things.
That's the real trend here, though, is that they just cannot put things together for a 40. Like they, as much as you hear the cliche things from Spo or the guys, it's like they know they cannot play a game for 48 minutes of doing something consistently. And that's really the problem to me, is that it's like there's moments from Jimmy, there's been moments from Tyler, there's been less of moments of Bam this season, but there's been moments from Bam, obviously. And it's just that you just cannot get it together at the same time, but you can't get it for a long period of time. They have a great, fourth quarter run against Milwaukee. They have a great first half, or I don't even want to say great against the team, but a good enough first half against Charlotte. And you just see these fall offs where it feels like nothing lasts. And it's almost like they rely on the thing that got them there, and they don't really like try out new things or hit new portions of the offense. The fact that I like the Bam thing's really interesting because I mean it's a clear topic, but like I thought he played a good game. Like if they held on to the lead, we probably would be talking, okay, Bam played a pretty good game. I mean, he played well defensively. The fact that he didn't get a triple double because he didn't get 10 points, I mean, it's pretty crazy to even say at this stage. Like he was playing really well. I mean, he was creating most of Duncan's looks, like the assisting, the boarding, the defense. It's just the scoring just has felt off. And I don't know the reasoning. I keep pointing at the fact that early on it felt like the new offense got him out of his rhythm because he wasn't able to take those shots at the free throw line, the mid ranges that he was used to. You're seeing an uptick from it now, but it just feels like there's a little bit of a hesitance, and it's just not as efficient as it was last year. And he's not in a position where he's like, okay, I could just put up a bunch of threes because I'm starting to take threes. It's like, no.
But Brady, my thing of it is, and I want to continue on the Bam topic here a little bit, okay? Because again, the Jimmy thing, we will sort this out. I mean, who knows? Maybe he's going to be out 2 weeks now, okay? And then they got to figure this out again. After Toronto, they go into this like death row schedule where they play 6 elite or close to elite teams in a row, okay? But here's the thing with Bam, all right, is that when we praise him, we're praising him for doing elite role player things. Elite role player things, right? 10 rebounds, 10 assists. This season. Facilitating the offense, okay, making sure Duncan gets his looks, all the rest of that, cleaning up stuff defensively. We're praising him for those things. But that was not the expectation level this year. It was not. And that's why I can't do that anymore. Like they're not paying him to be an elite role player. They are paying him to be the captain and the flag bearer of the franchise going forward. It does not mean he needs to score 30 every game. It doesn't. I'm not saying that. I understand that the expectation level for him offensively is different because what he carries defensively and all that. But I am past the point of just saying being an elite role player is good enough. Look, Draymond Green at age 37, okay, whatever he is now, is doing some of those things. And yes, is being paid handsomely for it because of what he's done in the past. But no one was going into the season saying Draymond is going to break out offensively for you and do all those things. And we thought some of that stuff was coming. And so I love Bam. I love what he brings to the franchise. He does all the things for this organization that they love, that we value. There's a reason everybody wears 13. He represents the organization beautifully in the community with the way that he competes and all that stuff. The competition has not been quite the level this year, I think, as maybe the last couple. But that's not where we're at with him. This is not no ceiling stuff. This is basically like okay, he defended, he rebounded, he did some of this. No, take over a fucking game.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at
back
with
to it. And I think that is where, and I said this on playback, I start to question like how you figure out this Jimmy Bam era quick enough to make sense of this group and make a run this season, but also like think about long-term what works best and what players would fit best around Bam to maximize him, maybe to get him in different positions where he is more confident. And, some of it's on Bam himself just to straight play better. Like that has to happen. But also it's not that I think the offense nor some of the guard play does him any favors in certain ways. So it's a tough position, but he definitely deserves to be criticized for the lack of, from my perspective, just aggressiveness. Like sometimes you just need to see that part of it. And it's been a tough start to the season. I will say November has been better. If you look at the numbers, November has been an uptick. But tonight, on a night where it's, as everyone has already mentioned, an older veteran that you should be taking advantage of, then you would expect Bam to dominate. He did it in other ways. Duncan was hot from deep. But to your point, they're not going to get to the upper echelon of the East with Bam Adebayo getting 8 points. It's just that's not the formula.
There was a game last year, I remember, where Bam was like 8 of 23 or 7 of 23. And I remember we praised him after the game because he just kept pushing through it. I don't see that will from him this year.
I mean, just to say, I think the main issue with Bam is the fact that we're having some conversations that we had like 2 years ago. And I think that's the frustrating part for a lot of fans, where it's like, where you'd say like, go attack Brook Lopez, he's giving you the shot, or like those type of games where that would happen. And you're kind of in a game here where it's like, go at Taj Gibson. Like, you have 10 assists, Duncan's cooking, but at some point that option wasn't there anymore. It's time to isolate against Taj Gibson and work a face up against the basket. So I think that's the part that's frustrating. I don't care about, if the mid-range number is down. Mm-hmm. I don't care if the finishing's even down. I agree with you. I think the attempts is the main part, but it's just the fact of like getting back to some of the stuff, like the shots last year where he would just get it in like the inside the wing and he'd operate and flow right into a shot or right into, a drive or stuff like that. We're just not seeing that initiative to just go and do something like that in the middle of a play. And I think that's the part that's kicking in. I just don't see the same confidence level that we saw last year. And that's, I guess, the frustrating part. And maybe that's part of what you're talking about, Greg, where you're talking about all three of these guys working together. When you start a season and you have to lean on one or two guys to like put you in a certain situation, like leaning on Tyler and saying you have to take this many shots or take more threes, and he's kind of putting himself with the ball in his hands a little more. It led to this, and I don't want it to get to a point where it just keeps free falling here. Like there has to be a point here where you really push this guy in the right direction and say, it's not just going to come down the line. Like, no, we need you to get aggressive now because we're eventually going to need it, or Tyler's going to have a couple bad games in a row. Maybe like that stuff could happen. You need Bam to be better and just be aggressive. I don't care about the efficiency part.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, we'll get to other players here who need to pick it up here a little bit. There's one comment here, and I'm reading through the comments. And again, the things are, I understand we're reactionary tonight because this would have been disastrous if they lost this game. And fans are obviously going to be reactionary. There's one comment from Alex in the comments that comes in here. Spo, I agree with this, actually. Spo seems to be too focused on raising the floor for this team instead of its ceiling. I want to touch on that a little when we come back. Because, I don't think this is all a Spoelstra problem. I really don't. But it does. I don't know. That comment resonates with me a little bit. All right, let's get to the play of the game, though, before we go further.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-Ray equipment and the staffing to you if you work in a hospital or a medical office. Get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
I mean, they're pretty much all Tyler plays, right? Greg, which one are you going with?
I think that there's, a number of them that come to mind, but we're going to save the defensive one here for a bit. So let's go with Tyler Herro kind of taking the team up one with 29 seconds to go, 29-foot three-pointer. Does that qualify?
I mean, that's a ballsy shot. Let me this, because there are people waiting to pounce on Tyler. We know this. He has a couple of, the efficiency has not been as good of late. He had an 8 of 25 in there. 3-point shot has not been going down the way it was, up until about a week and a half ago. He takes that shot. I'll ask both of you. Are you okay with that shot under any circumstance? Because he misses that shot, and then we start to hear the chucker stuff, even if he had missed that shot, he still would have shot, 45% from the floor, even if he misses that shot. So that's a hell of a lot better than LaMelo, who shot 11 of 35, which is 30% from the floor. And yet we still would have heard, Tyler. Is it just a make or miss thing here? Or do we want him taking all those shots? Is there nobody else that can take those shots? You'd rather have him take it than Terry, right?
My take on it is, I'm consistent with it. Last night, he literally missed a potential game-winning three. And when everybody was kind of pouncing on him there for taking that shot or Spo for drawing up the shot, I'm like, I felt like that's a good shot. He makes those shots. And seeing with the way the offense goes late in games, I don't know how you get a better shot than that. I'd want the ball in Tyler's hands in that position. So then you see literally a couple hours later in another game, different scenario, obviously, but the momentum shifted at that point. I think it was the rookie that hits the three to kind of go up 94-92. The whole momentum of the game shifted. Like that, they could have easily just fell over and gave up at that point. Like that is just an insane turnaround of a game. And for him to kind of come off the screen, he refused the screen, kind of goes left and flows into that shot, and they go up one. Like that's a Tyler Herro shot. He loves those shots. He loves those moments. But I am 100% okay with him taking that shot every time, especially for the thing we said early on in this episode, Ethan, which is there anybody that was more engaged than Tyler in this game? Mm-hmm. Like I want the guy that wants this game, that is like visually emotional after every play, that like legitimately wants this game. And he's shown he can hit it time and time again. So credit to him. Like I said earlier, like he really saved a lot of people. Even though we're sitting here like talking negatively about this game, right, or certain guys, they won this game. And that's because of Tyler Herro. That's legitimately because that guy, and I'll give Duncan his props too, because the fact that we haven't mentioned Duncan yet, Duncan was really good. He's the reason they were originally in that position, because if Duncan doesn't do that, we might be having a total other episode where they just lost the entire game, and we're never in that position. But Tyler deserves a ton of credit, and I will take that shot, make or miss, no matter what. I would 100% back that type of shot.
Greg, to focus back on Tyler for one more minute, and then I want to move to Jaquez and Jovic, which we're going to probably pot on more as the week goes on. But it does feel like, this matters more to him than it matters to anybody else. And it feels like he's willing to stick his neck out on the line in these situations, whereas I don't know that that's the case for others on this team. It feels like he cares more and he's willing to risk more. And it just we're now at the 16 games into the season, so we're essentially 20% of the way into the season. We're not at that magical 20-game mark. And I just don't know if anybody's going to come along for the ride with him this year. Like, yes, Jimmy's had moments, Greg, but it's like he has to be motivated by someone he doesn't like or does like on the other side. Tyler seems to be motivated by proving critics wrong. I don't know what it is. Okay, he's signed for next season. It's not contractual.
Yeah, he's just putting it all together. Sometimes guys get to a certain age and things click, and that's kind of what we see from Tyler. And so, like, to the point of earlier mentioning, are you comfortable with him taking that shot? Absolutely. Like, who else? Even if you think about this build and these three players, Bam, Jimmy, and Tyler, like, who do you want taking the 3-point field goals? It's going to be Tyler Herro no matter what. If everybody's at the top of their game, it's a situation where I don't understand why it feels like other guys haven't came along for the ride, because I don't think that everybody is necessarily that there's tension in the locker room or that guys aren't getting along. It's not that kind of vibe that I'm getting. It's just things aren't clicking on the basketball court. And I don't know how else to, I mean, maybe that ties more back to coaching than we need to examine. Like sometimes Spoelstra has been given a eternal pass. Maybe that's something to look at. But to see the young guys, and we're going to get to them in a minute, kind of take steps back, Tyler be the only one that's super engaged, and then Bam and Jimmy have moments, but neither of them are playing at the level. Just look at their averages. I mean, like we could just take it down to those baseline statistics. They're not playing their very best basketball. I mean, you're at a period where Tyler is almost outgrowing these other guys, and I just never thought I'd be saying that. I thought that this was going to be a season where Tyler was struggling to fit in, and he's been the guy that is basically, like the only one fitting in so far and really flourishing in his role.
And I don't know for sure if there's no tension in the locker room. It's always hard to tell. We talk about that with, what chemistry lead to winning lead to chemistry. It's a chicken or the egg type thing. I want to get on some road trips because that's where you can kind of see it best. Typically, you get on the road with the team, and I want to do more of that, starting in December. But I don't know if everybody's comfortable with the adjustment of this offense to more of a Tyler-centric offense. But I will say this. When he's the one bailing them out on a consistent basis, nobody else can complain. Okay? We can argue whether it was the right direction to go this offseason. Clearly, they leaned into it. And Spoelstra leaned into it. But you can't complain, again, when he's the one who will take the shots and has made some of these shots in these situations. I want to pivot to a couple other guys here, though, because I don't think Jaime Jaquez should be playing right now. I just don't. I'm not saying that
physical, or you think that he's just hit the wall.
It's a combination of things, but I mean tonight, he's 3 of 10 from the floor tonight. He ended up with 11 points in 20 minutes, 6 rebounds. So the stats are, but I mean it's a combination of things that we've talked about. It's the way he's been scouted, where they're taking away the spin move from him. I think his confidence has dropped as a result of it. He does not look. Larson looks much more comfortable as an NBA player right now than Jaime Jaquez does. And I also don't know if it's health, whether it's the groin or the ankle or whatever. But we noted it on playback. He has no lift. He has no lift. Okay, and he has no dunks this season. Mm-hmm. He had 29 dunks last season. He has no dunks this season. He's not cutting aggressively, and that's leading to the fact that was one of his great skills last year, and that's leading to the fact that he is his baskets, and I don't know about tonight, so I'd have to look, but only 25% of his baskets this year are assisted. It was over 50% last year, which means essentially his offense is him just burrowing his head and driving into bodies, and he's not finishing and throwing it up there. And I don't know. I don't know if he doesn't want to say he's not healthy. This is a team that has typically given guys an extra day or two to rest. He played 75 games last year, even though we talked about the groin injury and hitting the wall and everything else. He led the team in games played last year, coming off of a college season where he never had to do it to that degree before. Jovic is already out of the rotation. I know they need to preserve assets here and pump them up, Brady, but I don't know. I'm not unless Jimmy's going to be out a couple weeks now for a back injury, something like that, and then Jaquez can get comfortable in his role. I don't know what the role is. I don't know how. I don't see where the counters are, and he doesn't look right to me.
He definitely doesn't look right. I'm not sure. Like I said before, that you don't really see normally a guy come back that quick from an ankle sprain, but this was kind of pre-ankle sprain even. Like this feels like almost like post-groin problem. So I don't know if it's physical. I don't. He definitely doesn't seem like he has the same burst. The dunks thing, I think, it kind of shows that he's not really running in transition and getting those type of opportunities anymore. And the assist part is like he's not getting as many back cuts. Like how many times last year was he getting kind of open on a baseline back cut or that type of stuff? That's Pella's job now at this time. And the other part of the assisted part is, I mean, look, all offseason we talked and wanted him to get more on-ball reps. And this is kind of a result of that, but not to the same degree because he's just not getting them in the spots that you know. I kind of felt it's more mid-post work out of there, but they've kind of cut the mid-ranges out. And I think that's another portion of this is kind of hurting him, like the mid-range thing. And he has to turn things into more layups, and the finishing has been problematic. But you're right. A lot of the offense of him is just kind of running a pick and roll and kind of running into somebody and hoping he gets a foul or trying to like get a tip in or somehow like it kind of goes in. It's kind of been all over the place. So I don't really know how to judge with what we've seen. The lineups haven't really helped it either. Like I think when we were mapping out lineups that benefited him in the offseason, it was more of like spacing around him, but like probably no Jimmy or the main guys, so he can kind of get a large portion of the reps. And it's just been all over the place. Like they're at a point now where they're playing him with Pella, which is almost sort of like what they did with Caleb and Jaime last year, but it's still different because Pella almost plays exactly like him with the back cuts and the baseline roaming and all that stuff. It's just a weird situation. It's weirder because of the Pella situation. It's like you have a guy that they're legitimately turning to, which was the Jaime of last year, that's closing games, that's playing defense on these high level perimeter players, playing in transition, the baseline cutting, the tip ins, all of this stuff. You're just seeing them lean in his direction a lot more, and credit to them. I mean, that they have to do that. You have to lean to the hot hand thing, but it's just an interesting development. I don't really know what you do with it. I think like I said, I think the threes and the layup part is kind of what hurt him. And you're right about the scouting report thing. I mean, I've seen time and time again, like teams are definitely like prepared for that little turnaround. Like when he gets a hard stop, they know he's going to get to that little wraparound turnaround, and they've cut it off a lot of times. So now it's about him building these counters. So we'll see what he does. The finishing's the big thing to me. I mean, he's shown he can get to the line because he's physical. He's going to throw his body to people. Like he can get to the line and do that stuff. But now it's about when they're not fouling you, you have to be able to have a little more, touch in finishing and that stuff. So
he looks like he's foul baiting at times, which I didn't really sense that last year. I thought the fouls were coming in the course of just his general play. And then I mentioned two more guys here. Well, Terry went back to Terry tonight. He was 2 of 7 against his old team, 1 of 5 from 3. There was some. Look, the two guys who are supposed to provide scoring for them off the bench, Rozier and Jaquez, were 5 of 17.
Yeah, it's rough.
And Greg, but yet Nico's still not playing.
I know.
So
that means
by
somebody had to be cut completely for Spo to try to clarify things, and that's Nico for now. It could be a different player at a different time. I think if Caleb was 100%, I don't know that you'd be seeing Ware either. So I wouldn't read into like Ware being ahead of Nico or some kind of crazy thing like that necessarily. I think Nico could pop back up on the scene and get a shot at some point. Like that's how this goes. But for now, it is a little weird, and it is also it's disconcerting when you have Jaime, who you wanted to take a leap, Nico, who was starting and projected to be a starter and kind of now falling out of favor for now. That's tough when you also have questionable guys in roles and trying to figure out stuff with Terry. Really only Tyler has flourished so far. There's way more, as we head into Thanksgiving, there's way more questions than answers for this 500 basketball team.
Yeah, I saw a comment in here that there were more questions in this win than there were in the loss to Milwaukee. And at least in the loss to Milwaukee, the second half, they played the way they wanted to play. It's just that they came out so poorly defensively. I like this comment, and then we're going to do defending the house, and we're going to close. This one from Mike T here. Jaime and Jovic are fish out of water. They were asked to take another step in a new system that prioritizes everyone except them. And it reminds me of conversations I had with both of them. One, the one we had Brady at Media Day with Jovic, and then one I had with Jaquez in the Bahamas. And both of them, and even what Jaquez said at the end of last season about how he was going to come back, he wanted to learn to hit the three and be a lockdown defender, knockdown shooter, lockdown defender. We have put expectations on them to grow, but they've been given these roles that don't necessarily accentuate their positives, right?
I think the better way to phrase it was kind of the way Jovic said it was when you kind of phrased it that it's like, okay, this team's going to lean into their upside and lean into like the pop factor. He almost was like they're putting us in a position where it's like we have to be really solid role players and just kind of play off the main guys. And I think that's kind of what we saw early in the season was like when things weren't clicking and Jovic is kind of the scapegoat of like, okay, you need to be a good spot up shooter to make this work. And it was kind of inconsistent and up and down. So, it's next guy up and we're going to try something else. So that was kind of the case of that. It's like when we were kind of phrasing as like we thought they were going to lean in, when you don't make many moves, Jaime and Jovic are going to be the guys you lean on to like see what next level they can hit. And it doesn't feel like that's really being explored. It's like, okay, what ceiling can they hit as the role guys off the main guys? Like they're trying to make this core work. So they're trying to like formulate. I mean, that's what the whole offseason was for. It was to try to build up a game plan of everybody knowing their exact roles to base this off of. So it almost, I mean, that was a clear sign, right? I mean, him kind of making that comment early on was kind of telling. But I do think they're at a point. I agree with Greg. I think Nico he's going to get a second chance, and he'll probably be in the rotation for another stretch of games, or he could start another stretch of games. Who knows? But I think that's not the solution here to a lot of this. Like, I think that has to be made clear too. Like, I don't think whenever we start like digging down to the 11th and 12th or 10th guys, it's like you start like really realizing that you're trying to find a solution that's a little bit higher up on the roster.
The problem when you're trying to, fill out roles for role players is the center has to hold. And I don't mean center like the position. The guys you're building around have to be stable and connected, or else nobody else knows what the hell they're supposed to do. And Correct. It gets right back to what we talked about, Greg, at the very start of this. And then we're going to go to defending the house, but it gets back to the thing that we still have yet to see games, quarters even, where Bam, Jimmy, and Tyler all look good and connected together. And the metrics bear it out that it's still not a successful trio, at least in terms of on, off, and plus minus, all that kind of stuff, and eye test. And so you're asking, and I think with Jaquez, I think there's more problems than just this, which we just discussed, but you're asking these guys to build around. Well, yeah, if you have, Jordan and Pippen, and you're asking guys to fill in, okay, Rodman, you rebound, okay, BJ Armstrong or John Paxson, you're going to hit a three off them. Yes, Shaq and Kobe, okay, yes, Derek Fisher, this is what you're supposed to do, right?
Even the big three, it was a little more complicated. At least you knew you were going to be standing in the corner and shooting. Like you knew where you were going to be. And this is just it's not manifested the way that I thought that they had envisioned, because this was a perfect scenario where they had these young players in the pipeline that could be role players around these guys, and the guys at the top of the roster have not necessarily, aside from Tyler, held up their end of the bargain.
Well, and Golden State tried this. They tried this with the two timelines thing and had these young guys be role players, and ultimately it didn't work. And I'm not saying Mark M is saying Jimmy's the problem. We're not saying just Jimmy's the problem. We've talked about Bam a lot in this episode too, and obviously in previous years, Tyler was an issue for lack of availability, for lack of efficiency. But whatever it is, we don't see them. They don't cook together. They don't. And so then you're asking other people to kind of come into the kitchen and like, they don't know, like, am I picking up a spoon, a fork? What the hell am I doing here? And I think that it's that lack of consistency that, like I said, if the center does not hold, that's kind of where they're at. All right. Defending the house, we're going to focus on one guy in this. I just want to get your honest assessment, Brady, of how Ware looked tonight in his 12 minutes, other than making his first free throw. So let's roll it.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
All right, how did Ware play?
So he was in an interesting situation last game. I mean, he really got thrown into the fire, and that probably didn't get talked about enough. Like the fact that throwing in that fourth quarter when they're making their run and having to kind of be sustainable defensively. And I thought he was fine in that game, and I thought he was fine in this game. Like I thought he, I mean, if we're talking about strict defensively, that's not the problem of why he's not playing. Like I really see moments of that he's deterring shots at the rim. Like there's not the defensive rebounding is kind of the key for me. Like I think there has to be it's just not consistent enough. I mean, there's just too many times where it feels like they are giving up certain offensive rebounds. But like if we're talking strict coverages defense, I really like what he's provided as kind of a shot deterrer, just shot blocker and everything along those lines. And then offensively, you see what they're leaning into with. So Kevin Love is playing. Jimmy Butler is going to be the kind of the guy that glues down that second unit. If Ware plays, Herro kind of plays with that second unit because Herro actually plays really well with Kel'el Ware. And I think that Spo is kind of one of those combinations that he's realizing because we saw that tonight that he kind of played a little bit more. He's one of the few guys that actually throws lobs to Bam and Ware, and it just feels like that connection's been there. So I'm interested in more of that. But, I'm just a fan of him getting these reps. I mean, there's like if we're sitting here after a win, talking for 40 minutes about, just going down and trading every player on the roster, like let's at least have an upside play of a positive guy here that we could see a little more of. Like it just feels like there is some things to see. So if there's a portion of the season, like if Kevin Love, especially with back spasm, like take your time and let him kind of figure this out a little bit and let him get these reps. Like it feels like every time he gets an opportunity, it's either for a quick stint or for a game here and a game there. Like I want to see him kind of like draw in some games, like game over game, get some reps together. Because I really feel like he's been fine. The next step, I mean, the big evaluation for me for Kel'el Ware really is, we were talking about it earlier during the game. It really is the weight thing. It's really the long-term plan. Yeah. It's really of who he's going to look like a year from now, because once he puts on a little size where he's able to, like, there was some plays people were talking about where he'd have a mismatch and he's kind of standing in the paint with his hand up, and like multiple times they would just look the other way and not pass over, or Duncan like called for a screen for him. And it's like, yeah, you want to attack the mismatch, but is Kel'el Ware really going to overpower even a mismatch like a forward? I just don't think so at this stage. Like, I think that's the next step here where he could start get a little size, play a little bit more in the post, and that'll help his rebounding as well. So that's the long-term plan. But for now, I'm really fine with his minutes. Like, he is not, as long as even if he's a neutral, I'm fine with him. But he hasn't. He's been pretty decent, and he's been good defensively, deterring shots at the rim.
All right. Well, Thanksgiving is coming up tomorrow. We went almost 45 minutes on this so that everybody can take the day off.
Tomorrow, he won, by the way. Let's in the 42nd minute, let's put that out there.
Well, it kind of. I mean, I already titled this in a way that it's not going to reflect that when we send it over to the podcast feed. But I'll just close with this. Jay Seymour's comment. So we want to be thankful for something on Thanksgiving. We are thankful for our audience here and the fact that we're still doing this after 5 seasons. With Jay Seymour, I was at the game tonight. Hornets fans literally have nothing to talk about. It's so strange. Just be thankful you don't root for the Hornets. Because, Amen. Greg, that's your closest NBA city, right?
That's true. 3 hours away, and it was 3 hours too long a drive for me to cover tonight. So, it's the day before Thanksgiving. I knew that everyone on the Miami Heat's flight would want to get the hell out of town as quick as possible, so I wasn't interested in slowing them down and asking them questions.
Like I said, just be thankful you don't root for the Hornets. All right, have a good Thanksgiving, everybody. We appreciate all of you. And we'll be back with full coverage of the Toronto game on Friday.